5-minute bedtime Bible stories, retold by Amy Parker, illustrated by Walter Carzon. The Brave Young Queen, Book of Esther. A young girl named Esther lived in a town called Susa. Both of her parents had died, and she now lived with her older cousin Mordecai. Mordecai loved Esther. He raised her as his own daughter, and she grew into a beautiful and kind young woman. Susa was ruled by King Xerxes. One day, he sent his men throughout the land to search for a young woman who would be his queen. When the king's men met Esther, they saw that she was beautiful and kind, so they invited her to the palace to meet the king. Esther was nervous, but she was excited to meet the king. She said goodbye to Mordecai and went to the palace. Esther was very polite. Everyone she met at the palace loved her. And when the king met Esther, he too fell in love with her. The king had found his queen. Esther felt honored to become queen. She knelt at the king's feet as he placed a jeweled crown upon her head. Queen Esther lived happily at the palace, and Mordecai came to visit often. Yet there was one man who was trying to cause trouble for Mordecai. His name was Haman. Haman was the most important man in the kingdom besides the king himself. Everyone was required to bow to Haman. But when Haman went in and out of the palace gates, Mordecai would not bow. Mordecai was a Jew and would only bow to God. This made Haman very angry, so angry that he decided he would get rid of Mordecai and all of the other Jews too. But Haman did not know that Queen Esther was a Jew. Mordecai was horrified by Haman's plans. He ran out into the city crying loudly. Esther heard her cousin's cries, and Mordecai soon sent her a message from outside the palace walls. Haman is trying to get rid of us, all of the Jews. Please go and beg King Xerxes to spare our lives. Please, Esther. Maybe God has made you queen for this very time, for this very reason. You are our only hope. Esther didn't know what to do. No one, not even the queen, was allowed to visit the king without being called by him. She sent word back to Mordecai. Gather all of the Jews. Do not eat or drink for 3 days. And pray, pray, pray. I will do the same. When 3 days are up, I will go to the king, no matter what. For 3 days, Esther prayed. She asked for God's protection for herself and the rest of the Jews. She asked God to guide her as she spoke to the king. On the 3rd day, Esther walked toward the king's hall. Esther paused for a moment just outside his hall. She wondered, what will he do? What will he say? What will I say? Then she stepped inside. The king was happy to see Esther, but as she came into the hall, he could tell that she was upset. "What's the matter, my queen?" he asked her warmly. "Is there something you need? You could ask me for anything, even for half of my kingdom, and I would give it to you." Esther took a deep breath. "Please," she began, "bring Haman to dinner tonight." That night at dinner, the king again noticed that his queen did not look happy. He asked, "Queen Esther, what can I give you? You know I will give you anything." "Well," Esther began, but when she looked at Haman, she lost her courage. If the king would like, well, would you and Haman come to dinner again tomorrow night?" The next night, King Xerxes, Queen Esther, and Haman were all seated for dinner again. And again the king asked what was troubling her. "What is it, Esther?" the king asked. "Please just say it, and it will be done." This time Esther gathered the courage to ask what she had been waiting to ask all along. "If I may truly ask for anything, Your Majesty," she began, "then please I ask for my life and the lives of my people." The king's eyes grew wide. "What? You are in danger?" he demanded. "Where is the man who threatens my queen and her people?" "He is right here with us," Esther said. She looked at Haman, then down at her plate. "It is Haman," she said quietly. The table rumbled as the king jumped from his seat. "Get him out of my sight!" the king called to his men. Haman was immediately removed from the palace, never to return again. With Haman gone, Esther and Mordecai told the king the whole story. The king honored Mordecai. He gave Mordecai Haman's house and Haman's power in the kingdom. Esther, Mordecai, and their people, the Jews, were saved, all because one young woman had the courage to stand up and make a difference right where God had placed her.